We've been getting a lot of questions about tax sales in Alabama. Property tax sales in Alabama is a complex thing. And what I wanted to do was answer some of the questions that I've been getting and give you the straight skinny on investing in tax properties in the state of Alabama. I want to make sure that everybody understands that Alabama property tax law is different than any other state. Counties run on property taxes, especially the schools run on property taxes. If you don't pay your taxes on property and an investor doesn't come in and pay them for you, then the county kind of is going to come to a screeching halt. If property taxes are not paid, the county sells a lien, and that lien is called a certificate. The certificate earns 12% a year. The cool thing about Alabama property taxes, which is different from some other states, is that you can buy Alabama property taxes from the state 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Certificate purchasers earn 12% interest, and tax certificates mature into deeds at the 3-year mark. At the 3-year mark, they become a deed and they can no longer be administratively redeemed.
So y'all need to
judicially redeemed, which means that if you put investment into that property, then the redemptioner is going to have to pay you for that investment you put into the property based on how much you've increased the value of the property. With Alabama tax certificates, you're entitled to demand possession as soon as you get your certificate. So you could move in to that property if it was vacant. A buyer can rent out property that he has bought for taxes. There's several other ways that you can make money off this. The key here is in Alabama, you have an immediate right to move into that property, an immediate right to demand possession. Or you can just let it sit there and accrue interest at 1% a month. You can sell that investment to other investors. We actually have a fairly liquid market for selling tax investments. Your tax investor network is going to be very important if you get into this business. If you're an attorney, that's great. You've got the law side covered. If you're a realtor, that's great. You've got that side covered. If you're a money guy, that's great. You've got that side covered. If you haven't done this before, well, you need to find somebody who has some experience, who has done it. There are several other people who are going to be in your network for buying and selling tax properties. But you can't do it by yourself. You can't just be an investor and know all the laws and know the money and know all the tax issues and all of that. So you're going to need to have a tax investors network of friends and other investors, and attorneys and money guys. But what's important is that you figure out who the shills are. You figure out who what we call barracks lawyers are, the guys who spout off law terms as though they in fact know what the law is, and they'll say, oh, well, you can't touch that property for 1 year. You can't set foot on that property for a year after you get your certificate. Okay, that's Georgia law, that's not Alabama law. You can't do anything until the 2-year point. Well, that's Florida law. That's not Alabama law. Alabama law, you need to know the Alabama law, and you're going to get that from your investor circuit. If you're interested in getting more information on this, go to Elite Estate Realty on Facebook.
These are a couple of high-stepping turkeys, and you know what to say about a high-stepper.
And I can't find a seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this, pick a number, get online, and kiss my ass.
A representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services provided by other lawyers. You found the Backstory Podcast, number 157, Big Mules. To help us break that down, our participants today are Mr. Francis Paul Rip, consumer advocate down in Fairhope. How are things, Mr. Rip?
Pretty good. Hope everybody has a good Memorial Day and thinks about those people that gave their lives for us to have this Memorial Day.
And Brandon, how's things up in Birmingham?
Doing well. It's nice and sunny today.
So I thought we would get this out of the way, and seems like the purpose of the legislative session was to get the game plan across the goal line. Is that the major accomplishment
Yeah, the
of
big
deception.
thing was getting those tax incentives renewed and expanded so that, we could continue to lure, employers to come here and the ones we have to stay here. That was the big focus, and it is that has been signed, sealed, and delivered.
So, Paul, do you find it fascinating that the Republicans are all into corporate welfare?
Yes. I really don't know what's going on anymore as far as it's the Republicans versus 10 years ago. My God, man, I don't know what's going on.
Well, we kind of beat this to death, but judge issues scathing rebuke of ALDOT Director Cooper, says he acted in bad faith towards Bone County Bridge Company. And then, of course, we talked a little bit about the fact that the governor has invoked executive privilege to not have to turn over her text messages and emails, which, of course, we all understand that those are public records.
And to a screeching stop, $121 million project.
No kidding. And
and all those people that are coming down there to visit y'all for Memorial Day weekend, they're wishing that thoroughbred was there.
Let me tell you, it was. I was surprised. I went down to the beach Thursday night to meet some relatives, and man, it was like Thursday night. It was absolutely packed.
I went down kayaking Friday afternoon, and it was also the opening day of snapper season, so it was busy as all get out at the beach.
Yeah, water was pretty.
So, is everybody familiar with Seditious Conspiracy? I mean, it's kind of like if you come for the king and miss. Yeah, it's never failed too well for those people. You know what I mean? And so,
right.
But Seditious Conspiracy was the last time we've seen anybody prosecuted for that. Brandon, was 1887, 1867. I mean, it's been a long time since we've charged somebody with seditious conspiracy.
Yeah, I mean, we're thinking like Aaron Burr type stuff.
Right. Let me think. Admiral Sims down here in Mobile was not allowed to, take his circuit judgeship in Mobile when duly elected because they wouldn't let him become a United States citizen again because of his seditious conspiracy against the United States. He could live here, but he didn't have U.S. citizenship. So they did that kind of things to former Confederates, but the dipshit that shot his own eye out, he's the mastermind. Now, he does have a Yale law degree. I was kind of shocked when I was reading up on him a little bit. He made his wife
point that out.
No. He made his wife strip to support their family while he went to law school. Damn.
You could call that open-minded.
She's very open-minded. Okay, so I don't want to watch this, but there's a $5 million bribery scheme that's been uncovered linking the Biden family, and this has all come out this week in the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, so take that for what you will. I think we might watch this. It's worth our time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the panelists who have come here today to share your time. Ms. Murphy, you work for the FBI, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Murphy, do you know
I'm one of the head honchos, buddy.
what elite capture is?
Elite capture?
Yeah, do you know what elite capture is?
No, sir.
Jeffrey Epstein teaches a course every other Saturday at his little island.
Basically, elite capture is used by the CCP as a form of political warfare that seeks to control the actions of political, academic, business, and cultural leaders outside of China to benefit the CCP. The means of control take a variety of forms, including financial incentives, financial dependence, or compromise business entanglements, offers of access to opportunities within China, ideological appeal, and even blackmail. Are you familiar with these techniques, ma'am?
Like the Holo guy with DiCaprio, that kind of scheme.
Or the mafia back in the day.
Right.
You will
have
put
experience
Guido on your payroll or else.
with those techniques, seeing those techniques in your job?
Experience in seeing the Chinese government use those techniques?
Yeah, or any other nation state that wants to compromise U.S. officials.
I don't know that I've seen them personally, but I'm familiar with those techniques, yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Murphy, are you aware that a Chinese spy balloon just recently flew over the U.S. for about a week?
I am.
Ms. Murphy, are you aware that the CCP is buying up U.S. farmland near military bases?
I've heard reports of that. I don't know what evidence I've seen of it.
Okay. Ms. Murphy, does it concern you, some of the revelations that have been coming out of the Oversight Committee about the millions of dollars that have been paid to the Biden family recently?
I'm not aware of money being paid to the Biden family.
Oh, you're not aware of that at all?
No, sir.
That's interesting. You work for the FBI, right?
Yes, sir, I do, but I would respectfully refer you to the investigators over that case. I'm sure we can get you a brief on that. That is not a case that I handle.
Yeah, well, I don't need a brief on that, ma'am, to know that there are nation states that have paid millions of dollars to the Biden family. And that's one of the reasons that we're having this hearing. That's one of the reasons that Americans are so concerned that they see Chinese spy balloons flying over the U.S. for an entire week. That's why they're so concerned that they see these Chinese police stations being set up here. And they're wondering, how could this go on? This doesn't make any sense. And yet, the son of the President of the United States is involved and entangled for many years now in multiple business deals that the president claims he knows nothing about. And you, ma'am, you sit here before the Homeland Security Committee. Our job is to protect the homeland, and you act as if you don't know anything about it. You understand why the American people are concerned, ma'am? Yes or no?
I understand why American people should be concerned about the threat from the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah. Do you see any connections with what I talked about when I was talking about elite capture? Do you see, are you connecting the dots at all?
No, sir.
You don't connect the dots? So your job is to protect the American people. I just read you what elite capture is, the summary, the definition of elite capture. Everybody knows in this town what's going on. Everybody knows what's coming out of these committee hearings right now. And it's pretty sad coming from somebody who, as a young man, wanted to be a part of your organization because of the reputation that men and women from the FBI had built up over decades. And now
Yeah, I don't buy that. Do you? I mean, the stellar reputation of the FBI? What the hell's he talking about? I mean, Hoover ran it like a black man, like Jeffrey Epstein ran his island, right? And then think of the menagerie of failures, all these directors, one after another.
We all grew up watching Adventures of the FBI on television, whether in the 1960s or I think it came back in like the 80s or 90s. The public's perception of the FBI may be at its lowest point now, after, what it hasn't done, with Hunter Biden and what it tried to do with President Trump and that whole Russian investigation deal.
And Ukraine.
What it hadn't done here. What it hadn't done here.
Yeah, I mean, there's corruption all over the place. Now, heads up to the FBI, they did get, one state representative here in Alabama.
Oh, we'll get to him. We'll get to him.
So they are on the job doing more than I thought they were doing.
Well, you never know. Okay, so let's talk about these people who control your lives. I cannot tell you, the new Dow case that overturned Roe versus Wade decision that came out recently, This is judicial activism at its finest, and they are going.
Actually, judicial activism was the 1973 case that created a right to abortion out of nothing. And then the Dobbs decision basically said that decision was fraudulent to begin with.
Well, it
We're
expanded
going back to the law was before 73.
It expanded the federal definition of what liberty meant, essentially. Anyway, it was a compromise that stood for a long time, and it was the law all throughout my entire adult life for it to be upended. Half of our population feels very differently than the three of us, and I'll give them that
half
difference.
the population feels that should have been overturned. So it should be decided in state legislators and not by, court guys, over usurping, the state constitutions, like Alabama, we've all voted to outlaw abortion. Other states feel differently.
Okay,
Let the legislature decide.
That's rich coming from you, Brandon. I'll just leave it at that.
Let the legislature decide. That's why we elected
someone who watches this goat screwing on a daily basis, and you want these guys to make another important decision. I mean, it's the best we got, but my God. I was hoping that COVID would have shown everybody that these people aren't prepared for anything. A flu, much less a war, much less a famine, much less any kind of upset in the flow of revenue, because they can't seem to do anything innovative, and they don't trust each other at all, which is why you have all these earmarks and appropriations of funds. All right, so the Attorney General this week issued this little tweet here. Alabama land has spent years fighting the Obama-Biden onerous WOTUS rule. Today, the Supreme Court issued a big win for landowners and farmers. So here's the skinny. The SACKETTs own some property, and they wanted to build a house on it, and they couldn't get a permit from the EPA because the area that they wanted to fill was some kind of an intermittent stream. If you've ever looked at a USGS 7.5 minute topo map, the little areas that's got the little cattails on it? That's what we're talking about. So anyway, the Clean Water Act's use of waters in Section 1362 sub 7 refers only to geographical features that are described in ordinary parlance as streams, oceans, rivers, and lakes, and adjacent wetlands that are indistinguishable from those bodies of water due to a contiguous surface connection. So you can't have a lake and that finger peter out and then pick up again. That's not connected anymore. So you're going to have a whole lot of wetlands, especially in Alabama. I mean, look at Alabama. We're covered with waters and rivers and lakes. And so, down here, I don't know what exactly that's going to mean, but we certainly need to be. I hope this isn't the first anybody's hearing of this, is what I'm saying.
What really this is the previously, the EPA and the Corps of Engineers. The federal authority was to the waters of the U.S. was defined as navigable bodies of water. If you drive a canoe down it, that is, under federal jurisdiction.
Well, at one point in time,
the Biden administration, well, not the Biden, the Barack Obama administration originally wanted to redefine that as any water. Because, so, a ditch or a mud puddle became under their jurisdiction. The Trump administration since overturned that rule, and then the Biden administration has adopted that new waters of the U.S. rule. And the Supreme Court said, hey, the waters of the U.S. rule that stood for 30 years is the one we're using. Sorry, guys. The Sacketts can build their house.
Yep.
I think we'll live.
Well,
yep.
we will. We might not survive this next one. So the Supreme Court rules in favor of 94-year-old woman who got nothing. So a unanimous Supreme Court on Thursday gave a 94-year-old Minneapolis woman a new chance to recoup some money after the county kept the entire $40,000 when it sold her condominium over a small unpaid tax bill. The justice ruled that Hennepin County, Minnesota, violated the constitutional rights of the woman, Ms. Tyler, by taking her property without paying just compensation. The county had the power to sell Ms. Tyler's home to recover the unpaid property taxes, but it could not use the toehold of the tax debt to confiscate more property than was due to satisfy the tax debt, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the new ruling. So Tyler, who lives in an apartment building for old people, owed $2,300 in unpaid taxes plus interest and penalty, totaling $15,000 when the county took title to the one-bedroom apartment in 2015. The county said she did nothing to hold on to her one-time residence. The apartment sold the next year. Minnesota is among roughly a dozen states in the District of Columbia that allow local jurisdictions to keep the excess money, according to Pacific Legal Foundation, a not-for-profit public interest law firm focused on property rights that represented Tyler at the Supreme Court. At least 8,950 homes were sold because of unpaid taxes, and former owners received little or nothing in those states between 2014 and 2021, according to Pacific Legal. The other states are Alabama, Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts, Nebraska, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, South Dakota, the group said. There's been no explanation about why Tyler stopped paying her property taxes or why she moved from the condo where she lived. She's old. She moved into an assisted living place, and whoever, she didn't pay her dang property taxes, or her daughter
And
didn't.
probably every dollar she has coming in probably goes to pay that assisted living where she lives.
That's right.
And
So-
they probably get some money from the state, to make up the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So just remember, you heard it here first. This is going to upend things, and so now you know the reason for the intro video. The guy talking about, here in Alabama, when you buy you get the certificate when you pay their taxes, you can immediately move into the property or start renting it. In 3 years, potentially, you could quiet title the property and it be yours.
Yeah, we have some very sleazy individuals that go to these tax sales. Used to be in front of the courthouse. Now they have them online, and they buy $100,000, $200,000 properties for, $200 tax debts.
Damn.
And, they take people's property all the time.
Yep. And there are a lot of attorneys, generational attorneys here in Baldwin County, who are rich as shit because their grandparents and their parents for years and years and years would bet on people falling into poverty and them acquiring their property for next to nothing.
Yeah, it happens to like this 94-year-old person that she was probably making plenty of money, in her 30s or 40s or 50s. Then her health went out. She can't work anymore. Medical bills come up. And now, she's in assisted living, just waiting basically to die. And there's some, investor dude buys her condo for $40,000. I bet its true value is $100,000. And, he's rented it out to somebody for, $1,000 a month. And the government got their money, the investor got his money, and nobody gave her compensation for her property at all.
Well, think
little deal there.
Think about the implications in Alabama, Paul, where your property is given to a third party because they paid your property tax. And of course,
kidding.
And of course, the theory is that we don't want these properties to become derelict, and if we got somebody new to come in and to revitalize these properties and keep them in the stream of commerce, that's a good thing for everybody. So
I've actually done this before. The lot across the street from my house, in the 2008 financial meltdown,
Yeah.
the subdivision that owned that, the developers that owned it, they bankrupted. The bank that financed the subdivisions, it bankrupted, and some little investor twerp, bought it for the tax debt, and he was going to stick a trailer on there. And the city of Moody said you couldn't do that, so I gave him $1,000 for that lot. And that's probably 20,000 acre property. But
Dang.
it is property changes hands that way.
So, Paul,
Pay
there
your
was
taxes.
the Texas,
Pay your taxes.
the Texas House of Representatives has approved 20 articles of impeachment against Ken Paxton, including bribery and abuse of public trust. Another thing that he did was he had a buddy, that wanted to do something, and he asked for so he's selling AG's opinions for $20,000. If there's something you want a thumbs up from us to give you some cover, I'm wondering what that what the ones around here go for.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I wonder what the opinions he'll run for.
I don't know, but he's another one of these RAGA Republican Attorney General Association guys, funded just like our Attorney General. So I was interested to see if he was going to come to his aid. I didn't see anybody throwing him a life ring or anything.
Yeah, I can't see many people supporting Paxton at this point. I mean, maybe he's got some friends in the Texas Senate. He certainly didn't in the Texas House of Representatives.
No, but anyway, it's worth your time if you want to go to YouTube and watch that, but we don't have time for that. We have our own things to talk about here in Alabama. So, Brandon, this is your article. I'll let you tell me and Paul and the listening audience about this.
Yeah, this week, the U.S. Attorney's Office announced that State Representative Fred Plump has agreed to resign after he was charged with, corruption and obstruction of justice. The corruption involves, before he was in the state representatives, apparently, in one of the most ethically dubious practices that happens in Alabama, every state representative is allowed to spend $100,000, write little checks on his own authority in the district. If you're a state senator, you can write up to $250,000 for these checks. Apparently, Coach Plump was getting $80,000 a year for about 5 years from State Representative John Rogers' community service grants. And then he was paying a kickback to Rogers' legislative assistant. And, the money is supposed to go for the rec league, but Plump has, pled guilty and is going to pay $200,000 in restitution. So apparently not only did he pay a kickback to get this money for his rec league, he misappropriated the money that he got. And again, nobody in the state of Alabama caught this. This was the FBI doing an investigation. And then when the FBI informed him he was investigating and that he was to not share any information, he contacted this legislative assistant, supposedly, according to what he's agreed to, by text message, and then had a meeting with her. So whatever bigger investigation the FBI was trying to do was thwarted by Plump. And so now you got 2 obstruction of justice counts tacked onto his corruption stuff. So he's out of office.
It's hard to turn him snitch when he's blown the case by going
he's blown the entire corruption. I mean, I'm sure they were trying to, hey, if you'll wear a wire, there's some stuff, we would like you to do. and we'll give you a better term. Oh no, he had to go. Hey, the FBI is trying to rob me. First rule of a criminal conspiracy is that when your cover is blown, do not call or text your fellow criminal conspirators. Because you can pretty much bet your phone has been tapped before they ever talk to you, and there's probably 2 FBI agents following you around wherever you go.
So look, what county is he?
He represents Jefferson County.
Jefferson County?
Yeah, Fairfield, city of Birmingham.
Fairfield. Imagine that, Paul. Can you? All right, so the
Ooh,
Alabama
nobody's ever seen corruption in Fairfield before.
No.
Hell, really?
It's the home of Lala. Alabama Legislature sends budget to Governor Kay Ivey. This is another one of yours. For $14.8 billion.
Yes.
Dang. That's a
lot
that's
of money.
A lot of cheddar, brother.
It's a whole lot of money.
Well, and Paul, I don't know if you caught what Brandon just said. Let's go back to the Plump thing, okay? So each one of these state reps has $100,000.
I was listening.
They can just stroke a check for. That's what when you see them at the Red Cross and you see them giving money to the baseball league or whatever. That's worth $100,000 per. Right?
Yeah, I think we just identified $16.7 million in useless pork we can eliminate in a heartbeat.
And if the FBI wanted to look into any damn one of it, I would write
that as an amendment and send the budgets back to them.
Yeah, well, I mean,
they wouldn't like that, but I couldn't help it if I was the governor. Like, y'all can get rid of this. We got grant programs out the wazoo. The last thing we need is a grant program with no oversight.
Okay. So I don't want to talk a lot about this because like I said last time, I'm a 14th Amendment kind of guy. I don't think that we can ignore our debt. When we budget money and say we're going to spend this money and the Treasury Department has to go out and spend money to cover our bills, that's not a mechanic that should be nor has ever been used. And it's funny, when they tried it on Trump, he said, oh, this is completely unethical for them to do this. And, of course, now he thinks it's completely fine because he's not the president anymore. But what I heard was there was going to be a lot of cuts in the COVID funding, and I don't know how much of that's calculated into this $14.8 billion. Any of it, Brandon? All that's
we've got $14.7 billion.
Man.
And the COVID money, that $2 billion is outside of the budget.
But we still got to build prisons, and we appropriated a bunch of COVID money to do that, and we've yet to get started.
We took $400 million of the first $1 billion they sent us and threw that toward the 2 mega prisons in Elmore County and Escambia County. I've been told the one in Elmore County is going to cost over $1 billion by itself.
Well, I can promise you, if I had a private corporation, and let's just say I hired 40 more lawyers and I needed a board of directors, if you think that this bunch of yahoos that we send up to Montgomery to make decisions about this $14.8 billion would be on my little law, I wouldn't put these people on my law firm board. I wouldn't put them in charge of the damn Little League in town. But
I mean, if we added the ARPA $2.1 billion, they actually appropriated $16.8 billion, and that doesn't count the roads, which are outside the budget.
Right.
None of this is roads.
And of course, we just had one of our appellate judges say, Mr. Cooper, you're about one of the most unethical SOBs I've ever even heard of. What does he do?
Gives you a lot of confidence in the Mobile Bridge.
That's outside of the budget. He's just operating over here.
That makes you wonder what they're going to do at the toll bridge. I mean, they're beginning on the toll bridge, and they have not even anywhere near the money it's going to take. I don't know
how many years have they been working on that little bridge to go from Orange Beach to the barrier island in Orange Beach?
Oh, my God,
and that's been halted.
Yeah.
And we're talking about them trying to manage a $1 billion bridge. And construction costs, as we found out with the prisons, are a whole lot higher than they were when we started talking about the toll bridge 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, if you got to hire a bunch of legal guys to work on it, you know. All right, Brandon, tell me about this.
But Brandon's point is right. You, by the time you get to really into the nut and bolts of the bridge, God only knows what the price is going to be. It's not going to be what they're saying.
I agree. There'll be change orders. My God, you have no idea just go look what happened when you go look at the Big Dig in Boston. Every time there's $1 billion project, like $300 million gets stolen before they turn the first scoop of dirt. So
Fairhope had a $3 million change order on their sewer about 10 years ago.
All right, Brandon. So I don't understand this. So it's going to be compulsory for your children to attend kindergarten and graduate before they can first start the first grade?
Yes. If you want to enroll your child in first grade now, they will have had to have attended some sort of kindergarten program, or they will be required to take and pass a introductory to first grade skills test that is yet to be written. So I'm not sure what's on there. And if you don't, they're going to send your 6-year-old to kindergarten.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
And you have no say in it at all. It's
more work for us lawyers. Keep writing bills, you dipshits. Golly.
Mandatory kindergarten bill. That just doesn't even sound right.
I mean,
that rolled through the House, and it came out of committee in the Senate last week. I think it has a good chance of passing. It has bipartisan support.
You know what law enforcement says? You got to catch them young, Paul. We got to start indoctrinating them at 4 and 5 years old. So I guess a milestone, over $1 billion spent on Deepwater Horizon settlement projects in Alabama.
They have.
I can't really name them.
So much Deepwater Horizon money that we have allocated over $1 billion of it to this. Again, this is outside the budgeting process. So
Trip Pittman only got
other $14.7 billion,
and only 800,000 went directly to state senators in our Gulf Coast area that we're aware of. Okay, so
$750,000.
So Paul. There's a new planned development off Jimmy Faulkner Drive.
Right.
And I guess it's called Sibley Ridge. And I got this off of the Baldwin County Citizens for Government Accountability website. Here's the trick. You see all these new houses? All those lots right there? The city of Spanish Fort does not have their own sewer, right? Baldwin County Sewer Service, a private sewer, is going to service these lots, and that is my problem with it. It's going
kidding.
It's going to add to that capacity, and man, Jimmy Faulkner Drive is getting kind of crowded, boys and girls.
How many units is that?
Man, it looks like a couple hundred to me.
And you can see water on 3 sides of it, so you know. Whatever you do with the sewage, it probably can't be treated on site there.
Yeah, they're going to have to lift it.
It's moving out of what looks like a very low piece of coastal property, and it's going to have to be moved someplace else to be dealt with.
Yep.
They're going to cover every inch. Oh, no,
hey,
go back to that one.
Was there a new, Did you get the final amendments on this open records law?
It's better than what we have, but if they have a decent attorney at the public place, they can still deny you the record. And again, if they don't have a good attorney and they just deny you, there's still no punishment when they go to court and the judge says, "Hey, you violated Alabama's open records law. I'll give him the records."
Right. And any update on Space Command? Is that still?
It's looking like the 2024 election will have to decide Space Command, among other things.
Mm-hmm.
Because
that's what I thought.
the top 3 states for Space Command in the independent study is us in Huntsville, Nebraska, which should really be out there, and San Antonio. And all 3 of those are Republican, are red states. So, of course, the Biden administration is stepping it in and leaving it in Colorado, which is blue state, even though the Air Force said that's the 4th best place for it.
All right, Paul. So there's some, we read your hair on fire last time.
Right.
About Elliot stepping out there and doing all these things on his own, kind of going rogue. And then here are the articles that are trending, and we've covered some of it. The judge orders stop to $121 million bridge in Gulf Shores. And then I thought you could talk a little bit about this because I don't know anything, but citizens condemn Fairhope Pride Festival.
Right. A lot of citizens showed up, about 10 or 12, I think. The Tea Party showed up, Carol Wilson, to name a couple. And they're protesting the United Fairhope Color Fairhope with Pride 2023 Festival, which is June 3rd, and the drag brunch on Sunday, June 4th. And they just totally oppose well, now this is for adults. I mean, this is 18 and older. It does have a limit on age and everything, but I guess there's some people that are going to be offended by anything. So it became quite an issue there at Fairhope. I must say that the council did take, the council pointed out that this is on private property. They can't restrict this. So,
I mean,
you
may not like LGBTQ plus, whatever they're calling themselves at the moment, propaganda and thought, but we do have freedom of speech and freedom of association in this country. So, I would not approve of the Hedonist Club meeting and, having, Wife Swappers Anonymous, having a rally, but constitutionally, they have freedom of speech.
That's right. You don't like it, don't go.
Yeah, I mean, why are we protesting a group that has a legal right to have something? I mean, if it was getting tax dollars, then we can have a discussion. But
right,
what private citizens do on private property is their private business.
But like I said, there's always going to be somebody who's going to object to something.
Okay, so Paul, there was you remember summer before last, we had the Pablo Escobar, the big kilos of cocaine washing up, and they were shrink wrapped, and they had Pablo Escobar's face on a $100 bill on the front of it.
Right.
So similarly, last week, some people on Dolphin Island found a big bundle washed up, and they alerted a couple of guys working for the city who took a couple kilos for themselves before contacting law enforcement.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Go figure.
So anyway, they've been charged and have been dealt with and all this. And then the Mobile International Airport will open in late 2025. And, they got a new, I can't think of the name of the airline. It's somebody you never heard of, like a Lion or something like that. And they're, I think they're doing 2 nonstops from here to Houston and here to Atlanta, I think.
Yeah, restoring commercial air traffic out of Mobile is actually a major concern for Southwest Alabama.
Well, and it's Brookley Field too that we're talking about, just right there south of town. So
yeah, they're moving to Brookley.
While getting feedback from various levels of government for any large infrastructure project is routine in many parts of the world, these types of hearings can reveal interesting positions and attitudes. On May 18th, a hearing took place to discuss Airbus's expansion project in Mobile County in the American state of Alabama. This saw commissioners of the county discuss the project and voice their concerns over the millions of dollars in taxpayer funds soon to be spent. Airbus is hoping to further expand its operations in Mobile County in Alabama. Its operations in this part of the world serve to assemble aircraft within U.S. borders to be delivered to U.S. customers. Announced in May 2022, this expansion will see a third final assembly line, or FAL, in order to further ramp up production of its popular single-aisle passenger aircraft. As noted by the site Made in Alabama, this FAL would be approximately 350,000 square feet, or over 32,500 square meters, and add about 1,000 new jobs. Despite the prospect of hundreds of new jobs and a boon to the economy, some concerns surround this project. The expectation that Mobile County would contribute $10 million is one of the items that are up for debate, as this spending will need to be approved by vote. As per Fox 10 TV, Mobile County Commissioner Randall Dewitt asked for an extension to look over the agreement before decisions are made. It's a project been in the works for over a year, but it's a $10 million agreement with the county and Airbus, and there's an additional agreement with the city of Mobile, so it's a total of $20 million, the commissioner said. The money is set to go towards facility upgrades at Airbus, as well as professional development programs for local students. While this might sound like an overall positive, concerns remain. Of note is the fact that a large number of Airbus employees who work in Mobile live in Baldwin County, which neighbors Mobile County. Thus, taxpayer money from Mobile County would be supporting jobs for those living outside this administrative area. Weighing in on this concern, Mobile County Commission President Connie Hudson said, "We can use our best efforts and we always put that kind of language into a contract with that incentive, but if it comes down to it, you either support it or you don't." Ultimately, it looks like Mobile County will need to find ways to ensure that Airbus expansion within its borders benefits the residents of the county. We haven't come up with numbers, but there is some discussion about Airbus offering down payment assistance for people who are moving from out of state or out of town to Mobile County so they can start looking at homes in Mobile County, said Dewitt. Dewitt added that his intent is to protect the taxpayers of Mobile County, saying, "I want them to have these jobs, these white-collar jobs that pay $150,000, $180,000, $200,000 a year." The Mobile County Commission will continue to examine the project in advance of a vote in the coming weeks.
Paul, I thought I would tell you about these dangerous criminals who were hoovered up off the street. So, officers with the Mobile Police Department have arrested 8 people in a drug seizure operation at a home off Dolphin Island Parkway. MPD narcotics unit served a search warrant at the home on North Gimmon Circle Tuesday. During the search of the home, officers found 154 pounds of marijuana.
My God.
$71,000 in currency, 4 weapons, and they confiscated a vehicle.
Oh, my God.
That's a lot of weed.
That's a pretty good hit right there.
Yeah, I'd have to review the trafficking law for the state, but 104 pounds is getting awfully close to marijuana trafficking. They get you for marijuana trafficking, that's a life sentence.
Yeah,
wow.
And
that's a lot.
And you know they're
plus a lot of cash too.
And the feds are overturning and restoring people's rights over this stuff. So anyway, to each his own. Oh, let's see here. Here's a good one. You know how we were talking about this big sargassum mat that was moving into the Gulf and heading towards Florida and all this? Well, it's hit.
Right.
And this shit stinks, and it's piling up everywhere, and it's choking.
This goes all the way down the coast, all the way through the Caribbean, through Mexico, Belize, Nicaragua, Honduras, and like on San Pedro and Belize, everything that's on the beach, restaurants and stuff like that, man, that stuff, once it dries and starts stinking, you just can't believe it. So it's really having a big impact on tourism.
It's too bad it's full of arsenic. We could use it for something else. So our waterways here are tested weekly for high bacteria levels. And, of course, every time it rains, the city of Fairhope, Baldwin County Sewer Service, North Baldwin Utilities, Riviera, Daphne, and especially Moss, Pritchard, every one of them has a sewer spill. Every single time we have a 10-year, you know what I'm talking about, like a 10-year flood event, which happens every 3 times a year.
And this has been going on for 20 years.
Yep. So anyway, we'll keep you up on that. I did go down. I was at the beach this weekend. I mean, on Friday, and I was down there covering this. It was the 1-year anniversary of the disappearance of Danny Williams, who disappeared on Friday of Memorial Day last year and washed up on the very beach from where he disappeared 2 days later. And of course, he washed up with inside of the Marine Police substation. They don't have a record of his death, nor did they investigate. The Major Crimes Unit said that they weren't asked to cooperate or take over the investigation. So that leaves the city of Orange Beach in charge of the investigation. And as far as I know, I don't even think anybody took this to the grand jury yet.
What about this boat in question here?
Oh, well, that was the thing that was such boo-food. They put this on Facebook and Twitter saying that they were looking for this boat, that it had been reported stolen, and it wasn't stolen.
I don't believe that they have, a definitive cause of death yet. So if you're not willing to call it foul play, there's nothing to take to the grand jury.
Like I said, grounds. Well, but it's been radio silence. There hasn't been another press release since June 6th, other than to say, we're treating it as a suspicious death and we are continuing to investigate. And I contacted them back in December. They told me to go fly a kite. So there it is. All right, guys. Are y'all aware that there's a documentary about Rush at the University of Alabama?
Oh, yes. Where did I see that? Oh, I don't know whether I saw this one. I saw the one about the rape. I can't remember the name of it. I saw it the other night, but not the sorority thing. But I mean, I've been hearing about that kind of crap for 20 years too.
All right. Well,
Rush has been an issue in Alabama for 3 decades.
Well, these geniuses decided to give them access. So, anyway, this will be our outro. Y'all have a good weekend, and remember the people who served.
Right.
We're getting ready to rush. Look at all the people already starting to line up.
The University of Alabama is the top sorority recruitment in all of the country.
Rush consists of 4 highly competitive rounds.
Let's be honest, I probably would not be going to Alabama if it did not blow up on TikTok.
Oh my God.
I'm nervited, which is like nervous and excited.
It's way more dramatic than you're thinking it is.
Being in a sorority will help me figure out the person I want to be, because I feel like I don't really know who I am,
I have trust issues with people, and I get nervous that people are going to leave me. So I'm really hoping that when I get to Alabama, I can just always have an open heart.
I moved out at 16, as soon as my dad died.
It just is exhausting having to hold everything in.
We put a lot of pressure on ourselves.
There are a lot of things that you're entitled to when you're in a top-tier sorority.
The rankings come from fraternity boys, so the top house has the hottest girls.
I feel like I would never have had an eating disorder if the boys growing up didn't say what they said to me.
Everyone here just look at you and you have any color in you. It's just awkward, I guess.
Think about the undercurrent of racism that has been so prominent in our history.
The culture at Alabama is fucking weird.
You said it, Paul.
That's it.
Not to be dramatic, But this documentary could be the end of Greek life as we know it.
These accounts don't even look real. Have you guys heard of this thing, the machine?
No, you can't talk about that.
Heard about
is
that.
A social stratification ritual of power, of status, of prestige.
The rumor on TikTok is that they were wearing microphones in bracelets.
She got kicked out of Rush.
Are you kidding me right now?
Sorority recruitment's a game. You have to know how to play it. Because Greek life is everything at Alabama.
Reality TV. Reality TV, man.